Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about stovetop versus electric coffee brewing kettles. So essentially, to start us off, what is a coffee kettle? A coffee kettle is something like a gooseneck kettle. You can get different types of these kettles, but essentially what it means is because of the spout and the way that it's formed, you're able to get a really consistent flow, whether that be a slow pouring kettle or a faster pouring kettle. Some kettles even have restrictor valves in them which restrict the flow, slowing down the speed. That gooseneck also helps you to get as close to the bed of coffee grounds when you're pouring, and that actually lets you control how much you agitate your coffee when you're brewing. So you can actually get coffee brewing kettles with goosenecks for both stovetop and electric purposes. So in today's video, we're going to talk about which kettle is right for you. So first of all, we need to compare the pros and cons of each. So first of all, an electric gooseneck kettle, it's actually a lot faster to heat up. Secondly, it also has an automatic shutoff, which is quite useful and actually a lot more safer than when you've got a stovetop kettle. Reason being is normally when I'm brewing coffee, I will turn my kettle on first, set up the rest of my pour over coffee equipment, and then come back to my kettle that's then ready, and then I brew with it that way. When you've got a stovetop kettle, if you try and do the same workflow, leaving the kettle unattended is never really a good idea, especially if you've got like a naked flame or you don't want your kettle to overboil as well. So having that automatic shutoff is actually quite useful, and it also saves your electricity / gas if you forget about your kettle. So probably the biggest con when it comes to an electric kettle, besides the increased price, is they tend to last a little less longer. Now, if you think about it, a stovetop kettle is pretty low tech. It's sort of just a piece of metal container that you heat up like you would with a pot. When you're talking about an electric kettle, you've got some technology in there. You've got some electronics, and from my experience, whenever you have electronics or you've got a motor or you've got a heating element, it tends to last a little bit less than when you are relying on something external to heat up your kettle. So just bear that in mind. The second thing is it's more expensive. So because of those electronics and the technology built into those kettles, they tend to drive a higher price as well. Just another thing that you should keep in mind when you're comparing the two. Now for stovetop gooseneck kettles, probably the biggest pro is saving money. I'll then move on to saying you can also control exactly the temperature that you want, and the reason for that is most stovetop kettles will actually come with a built-in thermometer as well. So it's not like a variable temperature where you set it for your electronic. Instead, you actually just watch the temperature come up, and then you can just remove it and it'll be at that desired temperature or around that desired temperature. Another con for that is it's not always exact. It might mean that you have to keep going back to then topping up and adding some more heat to increase the temperature. It really just varies on the individual kettle. Now, I also found that a stovetop kettle does take longer to heat up compared to its electric counterpart. And then yeah, like we discussed before, it's also much more durable and will last longer, generally speaking, compared to an electric coffee brewing kettle. Now for the cons for stovetop kettles, you do need a stovetop. So it's not like you're relying solely on power. You're actually going to have to use a stovetop, which actually complicates things in a way. So if you have a dedicated coffee bar that's further away from your kitchen, making that extra trip to the kitchen where you've got a stove, it's a little bit annoying, and it really depends on where your kitchen's located or where your stove is located. If you actually have a designated coffee bar, it might even make more sense to purchase an electric kettle just so that you can keep it in the same coffee bar. You're not making trips, especially if you've got stairs, and it will save you time from getting from your kitchen to your coffee bar. It just depends on your current circumstances and your setup. All right, so when you're choosing a coffee brewing kettle, these are also some honorable mentions that I think you should consider when you're making that decision. So the first thing would be your capacity. How much water you actually need when you're brewing. So most kettles stay around the 1 litre, slightly under 900, 1.2 litre mark. It really varies brand to brand, as well as stovetop versus electric. They do have different capacities. So make sure that you know exactly how much you're planning on brewing with, and then also take into consideration the way that you brew. So if you've got pour over setup with paper filters and you're using that extra water to preheat and remove any papery taste, you need to consider that as well and have a little bit more water. Now also how accurate you want your water to be. We touched on this a little bit before, but I just want to reiterate how important this is. If you're looking for a coffee brewing kettle in the first place, being able to play with your temperature, so coming in at 90, 92, 93, 95, whatever your temperature is, if you know that your water, when you pick up the kettle, is going to be at that temperature, you're going to save so much time. You're also going to be able to have much more consistent results. Comparing that to a stovetop version, where you have to constantly go back topping up heat, and then playing more with a spectrum and a range of different temperatures, it can result in different tasting coffees. This also means that your coffee might be a little bit more inconsistent, so just something to bear in mind. So guys, there you have it. The best kettle for you will actually depend on your situation and your circumstances, what you're looking to get out of a kettle, what your requirements are, how you plan on using your kettle. We've also written a full blog post with all the details and all the different checklists that you need to go through to help guide you to making a choice on your coffee brewing kettle. So definitely check that out. We'll have all the links in the description. But yeah, if you want to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel and we'll see you in the next.